I've gotten lost in Smash Bros. Speculation more times than I'd like to admit. Imagining your favourite Blorbos in the world's greatest crossover fighting game can be really fun. And if you know me, I love a crossover. But what I love almost just as much is imagining an entirely new Smash-like game with a certain subset of characters, giving them moves, stages, or the side representation that a Smash game would give. And I can't think of a single more varied field of characters than the faces of mobile gaming. As a child who was shoved in front of a screen bright and early into my life, I've had a lot of time to meet and love these characters, and I've long thought the idea of a big crossover fighting game would be a fun idea, despite lacking ties other than the platform, rather than the same developer or rights holder like real examples. So today I put that into action and give you a Smash 64 size roster of mobile characters old and new I think it would be neat to see in a platform fighter, and we're going to kick it off with a predictable pick, but deservedly so. Just before we do though, quick rule disclaimer. Obviously characters need to be from a mobile game. I originally thought exclusively, or at least originally from a mobile game, but that would have cut out some icons I think you'll be glad that I spared. This does not include characters that were well established pre-mobile, so no Mario, Pikachu, Sonic, none of that. You know what I mean when I say mobile character. So, let's get into the fighters. Arguably the face of mobile gaming, Red from Angry Birds takes our first slot. By nature, he's basic, but since I can't put them all in, he'll take elements from his compatriots where I feel it's fitting. For standard attacks, I see just a few flaps and pecks as your close range options, but I'll be putting much greater focus on the specials in this video, as that's always where the juice is. You're here for references? That's where they are. You know how I said I couldn't put every bird in? That wasn't entirely true. As for his neutral special, I see Red using his various friends as projectiles, each with their corresponding properties. The blues are small but split off, Bomb is a bomb, Chuck moves quickly, and Bubbles gets big suddenly after a bit, each inflicting a different level of damage and knockback. For the neutral special, a little less traditionally, he could pull a Wario and get his cart from Angry Birds Go, scooting across the map and naturally dealing damage to those he runs into. It won't stay on the map like Wario Bike though, acting more similarly to Wonder Wing. His down special isn't something he can technically do, but I feel like stealing Stella's explosive eggs makes for a solid choice. Weaker than Bomb, but explosive nonetheless. It could even occasionally lay a golden egg, which acts as a spike rather than blowing up, another reference to the original game. The recovery feels obvious to me. The main tool used in the game's the slingshot. It could be angleable, similar to Fox or Ness, but just by holding down the button and changing direction until you release, or it times out after a couple of seconds. And what Smash clone would be complete without its final smash? Toss out the tuner because the Mighty Eagle is the perfect fit to dart across the screen and cause some real damage. Maybe an overlay of a shadow or its path could appear on screen to give some opponents a bit of a chance, but it would be big and quick, so act fast. For skins, because licensing doesn't matter, we can dip into crossovers like Star Wars and Transformers, as well as his space and night appearances, and just for traditional alts, I'm thinking colour shifts to reflect Tiny Wings and Flappy Bird, two more iconic mobile birds who were a little too simple to hit this roster. For the stage, we can reflect the movie by picking Pig City. As much as Space or Rio de Janeiro would have been more interesting, I feel like it's nice and standard while helping reflect the newer end of the Angry Birds franchise. And there is slot number 1, but surprisingly, not the character I envisioned first. That title goes to our next entrant. Enter Half-Brick's hero, Barry Steak Fries, a man you'll likely know from Jetpack Joyride, but actually has his origins in a game called Monster Dash, and will be pulling from both to make this next moveset, and in some cases both in the same move. Regular attacks could range from a big hitter emblematic of his ability to infinitely smash through laboratory walls, or a slap for a jab, subtly referencing the High Five Scientist missions from his home game. But more importantly, those specials. For his neutral special, he wields a gun. A shotgun, that is, providing a powerful albeit short-range blast in a cone shape, racking up both damage and knockback. If it sends up, it could also be used to combo into his side special, Flash the Dog. Known for scooping up coins to most, but here you can either just send him running across the screen, or with an additional input, he can leap up and catch foes in the air that are out of your reach, maybe even causing some coin effect similar to Mario Upbeat, always worth having that extra flair. While Jetpack Joyride has plenty of vehicles, and there's another one coming up, I know none more iconic than the Badass Hog, actually originating in Monster Dash but following him on through his future rampages. His down special would see him hop on and do a few donuts, and if used in mid-air would act like a fast fall, sort of like a reverse Bowser recovery. But in terms of actual recovery, I feel like it's more than obvious. Yes, of course, the good old machine gun jetpack. This would naturally get him some height, but send weak projectiles down too, causing no knockback or interrupting moves, but racking up the hits if aimed well, like Fox Laser. I see it having a kind of fuel, or I suppose ammo meter, meaning that you could use it in intervals but not infinitely, and you'd need to touch the ground to slowly reload. Regardless, an essential piece of kit. Jetpack Joyride has plenty of skins as it is, making this segment rather easy. The Scientist gear, Robo Barry, the Royal Kit, Fancy Clothes, Bag and Barrel, and Hula outfit would all be good picks in my opinion. And for the stage, the classic lab is the natural choice. Possibly some platforms scrolling along through the various rooms, like the greenhouse and the volcanic area, maybe with some zappy bars appearing or the rockets alongside. I feel like it would translate oddly well. And so with that, another classic has entered the arena. So let's try and bring it a bit more contemporary, while keeping some classic ties. Repping Supercell, the king from Clash Royale enters to rule over the competition. I initially considered a unit like the Barbarian, but it felt a little limiting compared to what I could do with a commander type character. So let's take this guy from Clash to Smash. Starting simple, I think we could see a slow heavy hitter using his sword and a good stomp or two to use that super size. With the neutral special, I envision just a big sword swing a la Ike, I guess technically inspired by the Barbarian King, as I don't believe these kings actually do the fighting, but on this battlefield, rulers still gotta play by the rules. Not entirely doing all the fighting though. His side special sends out some projectiles courtesy of the archers. I'm thinking either a series or a spread of weak projectiles that interrupt opponents and do a decent bit of knockback, but nothing crazy, they are just arrows after all. For his down special, we take a page out of Bowser Jr.'s book, instead sending out a wall breaker to make a blast on impact. If this move is used in the air, we could even see a balloon come out to guard the skies. Also taking flight is the King's recovery option, the Dragon. A good air option and possibly even shooting out some fire for damage, or maybe just getting hits in by ramming into opponents. A versatile move either way. And for the final smash, he does what a king does best and rallies his finest to send enemies flying. He summons a P.E.K.K.A. and Mega Knight to act as temporary extra fighters which move slow but hit like an absolute truck. You can fight back if you're feeling brave, but keep your distance if you don't want to taste defeat. There's a few possible skins, naturally the red and blue alt, Barbarian King, Archer Queen, and other hero troops, just any big guys from the Clashverse. And for a stage, I feel like the village makes the most sense, or possibly a homage to the Clash Royale map from Side On, with a water hazard and the two towers. I had one additional note for this character, and that being the only taunt I've conceived, because it's hard to deny the character importance of So with that, I feel like we've covered a lot of demographics for mobile game fans, but I can't help but feel like the mothers of the world have been neglected. What say we rectify that? A sweet entrant next, Tiffy drops in repping Candy Crush Saga, the mistress of Match 3 and brain parasite to the middle-aged everywhere. Being a significantly less action-packed game, this moveset was a little trickier to come up with, but when thinking of portable powerhouses, I would be amiss to skip her. So let's see what I came up with. Since Tiffy isn't even a playable character, I focused a lot of this on the solitary game mechanic of Candy Crush Saga. Match 3. Standard attacks could just be getting a match on opponents in all sorts of directions, with the neutral maybe being a slap with one of these fish or the bonking lollipop. We don't have a lot to work with here, as you'll soon truly realise. For the neutral special, she can match 3 above her head with one of those explosive packaged candies, giving her a blast radius around her. Maybe multiple in one if you get lucky, similar to Game & Watch Hammer. A similar facet goes to both of her side and down specials, going horizontally and vertically respectively. Again, we could go for the same chance of a wider or stronger strip of attack. I considered each colour even doing a different effect to the opponents, but I feel like we've designed enough of a roulette wheel of a character as it is. For her recovery, I swayed between just shoving the puppeteering stick onto her and carrying her up, or using this fish again, about the only thing seen in motion in the original game. But literally as I'm writing this, I remembered we're working with a franchise here. Candy Crush Soda is a game you forgot exists, and I feel like it could serve as a good recovery, with the longer you hold it making you travel further and with more damage. And what is more powerful in the Candy Crush games than the Rainbow Candy, which will serve as her final smash? Maybe you control it around to select people like Snake's final smash, and after a few seconds a beam of energy blasts the highlighted opponents. That wasn't so bad for a character whose entire purpose is to stand there and get you to buy lives, but that character needs some skins, and the main one I can come up with is Kimmy, also repping Candy Crush Soda. They're the only ones with any sort of proportion similarity, so just various colours of them and we can call it good. 3 each representing the 6 candy colours makes a good fit in my eyes. Finally, the stage, and the only name I can find for Candy Crush Land is Reality. And oddly, I'm considering making it a stage that is entirely, or at least mostly, destructible, making it up out of the chocolate, frosting, licorice, the like. Maybe I'm going crazy, or maybe it's just the sugar high from this segment. I think it's best we move on to fighter number 5, hailing from the progenitors of the Match 3 genre. Prime to pop a cap in the other players, Crazy Dave of Plants vs Zombies is here to go buck wild in the battlefield. While newer entries have made the plants more self-sufficient, sticking to the OG gives us only one real option, at least for now. We will, of course, put the plants to use, but we'll get to which very soon. For standard attacks, he could put his saucepan hat to use, the trowel with a chance to temporarily bury foes, and even the ever-useful rake. Plenty of green-thumbed goodness to put into play. But after all that tilling of the land, what can we plant there? I decided to push the boat out a bit with Dave, and that comes mainly from his down special. This would see him just stand there and generate sun, filling up a 3-segment meter of said sun, which reduces over time as well as when he takes damage. But what for? Well, everything else, of course. Kicking it off with the neutral special, this takes form as either the Potato Mine, Cherry Bomb, or Doom Shroom, depending on his level of sun. These, of course, blow up. The Potato Mine would take a bit to charge but stay hidden and also have the weakest blast. The Cherry Bomb would explode a bit quicker and with a stronger blast, and the Doom Shroom would have a charge time somewhere between the other two, but with by far the biggest blast, and also take a small chunk of sun in addition to the natural degradation. Much more iconic, the side special sees the Pea Shooter, Double P, and Gatling P do exactly what they always have. Shoot P. 1, then 2, then 4 at a time. Nice and simple. For the recovery, a Nisha pick sees the Blover join the arsenal. The sun level here would vary the height you get from the recovery, but not the speed or damage dealt. It would also eat a small chunk up similar to Doom Shroom, needing you to shy away and get your sunny up, not your funny up. Last but not least, the good old Cobb Cannon shoots up a maze mortar or 3 to come crashing down onto the stage, launching people and popcorn all over the place as has always been. This move is unaffected by sun and is always just an absolute powerhouse. When I was researching for this video, there were a few more skin options than I recalled, with Crazy, Evil Dave, and Carny Dave to name a few. And for the stage, I was initially drawn to the house, going around the garden, pool, and roof, but it felt a bit too bland and overlooked a big chunk of PvZ's presence, that being the game known as Plants vs Zombies 2. Rather than a transforming stage, think more the Animal Crossing course from Mario Kart 8, with a different look every time, and possibly even a slightly different layout. Tournament legality be damned, I'm crazy! Anyway, while we're on this track, how about we get another fresher face with a similar penchant for horticulture? Yes, it's the scheming senior from those strange ads you've seen. Ursula surpassed her granddaughter Maddie to take the roster spot as easily the most iconic part of Merge Mansion, taking the stage on behalf of the bizarre rise of merging games in recent memory. Like Tiffy, her game revolves much more around the things around her rather than her as a character, but I feel like we have a bit more to pull from for moves here. Standard attacks boil down to various smacks with hammers, paintbrushes, or any manner of little items found in the mansion, but we can get a bit more interesting as always with those specials. In a lot of depictions, Ursula can be seen with a watering can, so why not use that for a neutral special? This would have a short range and small damage, but add a slick patch to the stage temporarily, causing foes to slip and bypass stopping at the ledge, causing some comical coyote time for unaware opponents. Her side special takes a page from Peach's book, swinging either a hoe, rake, or shovel for different results. The hoe swings down, causing a spike, the rake straight out and pulling enemies in, and the shovel sending upwards for air combos. This would be selected with the same angling process Peach uses. For For a down special, enjoy getting held down and lawn mowed, racking up damage and bouncing you up in the air after it's done. It would run out of fuel though, so don't get too used to it. You could even move slightly with it, but this would cause that precious fuel to deplete faster. We're here to fight, not landscape. And a bit of an odd one for her recovery, but I've seen her depicted often with a nice fresh pie, so we could even pull from classic cartoons and give her a floaty fly courtesy of that aroma. It could possibly have a charm effect if you get too close, but I'm not sure entirely how it would work, so for now we can shelve that. We can't have her entirely mergeless in this moveset though, so for a final smash, how about she merges together parts which slowly grows into a mansion around her, before collapsing down and raining rafters on those foolish enough to approach, maybe with some bouncing parts too to catch campers. Ursula isn't often seen outside of her classic blue look, but some alts based on Maddie, Deb, her prison outfit, and the fit from her live-action Kathy Bates appearance could serve pretty well. To differentiate this stage from the clan village or pig city, what say we set the stage inside the mansion itself, perhaps with some falling bookshelves and chandeliers, butlers with large plates for platforms which come and go, you know, rich people stuff. But that's enough of the game you see between your TikTok scrolls. I'd say it's time for the one that you can often find right below plenty of videos these days. Yes, that game from the background of Reddit stories and duets of actually funny people goes by the name of Subway Surfers, and the main man goes by Jake. He's a delinquent kid known for spraying trains and outrunning the cops. He's a man of the people and an icon of the very common infinite runner genre. Sadly, the minions weren't available, so we'll settle for second best, with a surprising amount of material for the simplicity of the game. I feel like he'd be much punchier and kickier than our previous entrants, nimble on his feet and good for physical combos. Let's see what the interesting bits of Kid are though. Neutral Special brings out his iconic spray can, possibly giving a painted effect to weaken opponents a la Inkling, or just stunlock opponents in a cone of colour until you're ready to get physical. Another staple part of Jake's kit, his side special utilizes the hoverboard to dash into opponents and keeps you going in a perfectly straight line even off platforms, but also the stage, so be careful. Not a lot of knockback on this one, letting you get up close quick and lay in some hits. Speaking of getting up close and personal, the down special is the good old combat roll, usually for getting under signs, but here we're getting lowered opponents and, as with the board, getting you close for more hits. And though not quite a joyride, the jetpack makes an appearance as Jake's recovery, getting you up and quickly rather than gradually like Barry's. Used up close, this makes for a great finisher too, netting the highest knockback of his loadout. What else would fit as a final smash other than the good old subway train coming along the screen, acting as a platform for Jake and bumping others who land on it, or knocking those who take a direct hit upwards either to land on top or go flying down a stock. An express delivery to damage either way. Jake is far from the only character in Subway Surfers, so those pals make for great skin potential. Tricky, Fresh, Utani, Ella, Spike, hell even Boombot, there are plenty of options we could go for, no doubt about it. And for the stage, let's take those 3 lanes of trains and have them alternate out, causing a shifting battlefield with a damaging floor when there's one missing. Think Mute City, but from a first-person perspective. This is not the only character with an infinite runner, however, but it is far from his main claim to fame. Another classic up next, we have... This is no catfight, but that's not stopping Talking Tom from claiming this next spot. Hailing from the genre of microphone testing games? Conversation simulators? Whatever it is, they took the world by storm back in the day, and now he takes the spotlight as fighter number 8. I'm quite proud of what I've done with this one. He's very gimmicky, similar to Dave. Normal attacks would just be directional scratches and possibly bites, but more importantly, what is that gimmick, you may ask? Well, that would be his neutral B, the facet most important to his character, Mimic. Tom is going to be our Kirby, and this move sort of parries the move that hits him and adds it to his kit. Only for specials though. This can be knocked out of him, indicated by a dizzy bird effect above his head, but not instantly, so keep in mind what he has up his sleeve, or fur. But what's he got that's unique to him? Well, for the side special, we get the boxing glove gun from his brief time as a newscaster alongside Ben. I'm thinking more charge equals more range. I did consider the water pistol, but you can already steal Ursula's can, so why steal her thunder too? The down special is... he gets knocked out. He does a big dramatic fall, and that flop does big damage. I'm seeing this almost as the Falcon Punch, high risk with high reward, but leaving him prone for a second if you miss. As mentioned before, Tom has other ventures than talking, and his recovery brings in a reference to Talking Tom Hero Dash, Super Tom. Decently fast and controllable, but maybe if you steer you lose flight faster? I know I don't necessarily have to balance this, but I've already made Ganon Kirby, he doesn't need too insane of a kit. And for the final smash we actually pull from Talking Ben and his brief stint as an alchemist. Potions get mixed up to make a big biting plant, a tornado, an explosion, and a small heal to close it off. A truly mixed bag. Much like Jake, Tom's pals act as solid skin choices. Ben, Angela, and Ginger, and perhaps alts of each, and this ties into the stage actually. This would just be a flat walk-off which reflects the character, with Tom's hallway, Ben's house, Angela's patio thing, or Ginger's house, depending on which is being played. If multiple Toms or no Toms are on stage though, the selection is just randomised. One thing the past few characters have missed is that natural violence that a good fighting game character needs. I think it's high time we go for another pick with some real fighting spirit. I can see some controversy with this choice. While Worms was around in the mid-90s, there have been some mobile exclusive Worms games, and if Bayonetta started on PS3 and Xbox 360 and can be a Nintendo character, then Worms can be a mobile one. This is my video, my rules. Luckily, Worms is all about artillery, so there's plenty to draw from here. A nice easy neutral special for beginners, the Fire Punch is a punch that is fiery. This will knock you up rather than horizontal, and maybe leave a little bit of chip damage for a few seconds, because, you know, fire. Another charge up side special next up, the classic Bazooka. Depending on the angle and charge, this would vary in speed and fall off, so you're not safe under it. The impact also explodes, because of course it does. For the down special, you drop a proximity mine, which is quite obvious due to its bright colour, but also quite sensitive to those getting too close, really claiming an area of the stage as your own, and acting as a helpful spot to whack foes into. Wanting to avoid yet another jetpack recovery, we'll instead go for the Ninja Rope, which will behave similarly to Byleth's sword in that it can either grab a ledge when off stage, or an opponent if aimed well. It will also pull you up and them down, respectively. No item is more iconic for this final smash than the Holy Hand Grenade, having the same charge and aiming as the bazooka, and of course giving off an almighty blast after a few seconds, angelic choir and all. Be careful though, it could get caught and redirected by skilled players, turning this into more of a holy hot potato. Worms already has plenty of cosmetics, so any matter of the hats could work for alts. A soldier helmet, knight helmet, top hat, Viking helmet, all the classics to differentiate these wrigglers. And for the stage, I'm going to steal the idea of Mario Maker's stage, as much like in the original game, it will randomly generate, and why not? This is going to be our New Pork City, our Great Cave Offensive, very, very big. But we can throw plenty of hazards around to shake things up, almost an exact homage to Worms Battlefields. And from there, hoping you've forgiven me for bending the rules a little bit, I've got a pure-blooded mobile classic coming up next. Tiff better be scared because the candy-crunching Om-Nom from Cut the Rope takes slot 10. Mostly a passive player, at least in his game of origin, but those mechanics used initially to guide the candy will come in handy in the ring. No flashy gimmicks here, just some stomps and headbutts for standard attacks, and of course, the specials. Let's get into them. Neutral special sees him do what he does best, open that mouth up to Om and Nom on opponents, much like Wario before him. It's basically a one-to-one in my head, so possibly also able to eat items, so watch where you're throwing that holy hand grenade. For the side B, bring out the blowers, whoopee cushions, what are these? Whatever they are, they blow air and they would cause small damage but a good bit of knockback if used up close. The down special is a bit more complex. These magic top hats join the kit, and as in the home game, act as portals. The hat moves forward the longer you hold the input, and if you release it, you hop in and pop out the other one with a big hit. Alternatively, you can swish a falling enemy into the hat and bring them up close to you to scrap or launch them back away with the blower. And for the recovery, the ever-handy bubble will float you upwards, carrying you safely back to the stage, so long as you don't get popped on your way up. This has little offensive capability, but does its job of keeping you in the game very well. Final Smash actually draws from the oft-forgotten sequel Cut the Rope Experiments, donning his glove mask and gaining a psychic black hole of sorts, which you can control for a few seconds before it slams into the stage along with everyone caught in it. A mind-blowing finish. Speaking of experiments, that can provide us some good costumes, such as the cowboy hat and Viking helmet, along with some of the other looks from Om Nom Run. Damn, mobile games love an infinite runner, huh? But the original game will provide our stage. A good old cardboard box with cutouts for platforms, maybe some spikes, but I'm unsure. Now with that nice, simple looking character from the golden days of mobile gaming, how about we follow up with the exact opposite of that? You ready to hear about this game outside of an ad for the first time ever? Today's segment is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends, and the undead foil of their ad campaign, Death Knight. Despite not being the literal face of the game, in my head and I expect many others, he is the only name I know. And he's been pushed hard, so now he's here in the 11th slot. At his core, this is a knight, so regular attacks can just be swording around like a bony moth. But you'll see this comparison will quickly become weaker. With that, let's see those specials. Despite the normal sword swings, his neutral special is a sword swing, but this is a much bigger one in a big arch, which has a chance to inflict a slowing effect, referencing the debuff of his rusty sword attack from the base game. This would have about the same probability as in the base game, that being 15%, so you gotta roll lucky if you want those couple seconds of advantage. Thanks to the genre of his game of origin, we can rip a lot of the moveset directly, albeit tweaking them to fit this genre. With that said, next up is Decrepit Hatchet for his side special, which is thrown in an arch like the Bellmans. This has the same debuffs as his sword in Raid, but that won't be reflected here, just being a normal projectile. Another direct rip, Payback is a parry. What more can I really say? Get hit, do damage back instead. That's what a parry is. And the move I had to tweak the most is a mastery from the original game, Whirlwind of Death. Just as it sounds, you shoot up with a little tornado around you and spin around dealing damage. I see this as being a very floaty move if you try to side, so be careful not to overcorrect when recovering. His final smash is his upgrade from his game of origin, Ultimate Death Knight. This is just a transformation which keeps the original moveset, but giving him harder hits, further knockback, but much more weight, which speeds up falls and slightly nerfs your recovery, just as a means to balance things out a bit. And for the stage, I've heard every YouTuber in history talk about the Doom Tower, so we'll go for that. I see it as a scrolling stage like Rumble Falls, but with the aesthetic of Dracula's castle, and nice and slow as not to get too annoying. Which brings us to our final pick, and I felt like this had to be a big one. The apex of my plan, and there was only one man fit to do the job. Pooh is a virtual pet which is usually the byproduct of a Tamagotchi, but has become a cult icon among people of my generation as this strange blob you could gorge and physically abuse to your heart's content. So let's give him some love here. Starting with that physical violence, I'm just gonna come right out and say it, Pooh has aura. The more beaten up he is, the more he beats you up, using his attacks of just sort of stretching in your general direction. But that's far from his complete kit. Let's see our last round of specials. For his neutral, we get a good old ball, or various balls I suppose, similar to the shot put attack on Mii Brawler, but with various physics and damage depending on the ball. Not much more to say here, so here's this funny screenshot I found from the research. For the side B, you didn't think I'd end this video without one more car, did you? This one is the slowest of the bunch, but to make up for that, it hits like a truck. Or like a small 2D car, I guess. For the down special, he has a quick little snack for a heal. This charges over time like waft, so you can't spam it, and being patient will reward you with practically a free stock, at the risk of being vulnerable to big hits. And for the recovery, we get the classic Pooh platform jump. Definitely not inspired by a certain other game that got cut from the roster last minute. This acts like Pac-Man's recovery, giving you 3 uses of it before it's gone. And finally, if there is one thing Pooh is good at, it's being flung around the screen like a ping pong ball, and so his final smash will be that, bouncing off blast zones at light speed like a DVD logo with a bloodlust. And just like that logo, his ults will just be the various colours from the minigames, and his stage will also just be block colour platform on block colour background, a low effort stage for a low effort character. What a way to see it out! And that, folks, is your roster. 12 icons, old and new, quality and not, primed to duke it out. But what would a Smash game be without extra references, so for the game's not quite fit for a fighter, at least in this video, let's get some assist trophies, for the culture. From Doodle Jump, the monsters float horizontally across the stage, dealing damage to those they come into contact with. Pretty simple. From Plague Inc., red bubbles appear around the screen for a period of time, and if you hit them, they deal chip damage to you for a while, because, you know, disease. From Beat the Boss, the titular boss bounces around the stage and while not damaging you himself, will fall victim to plenty of attacks that you can absolutely get caught in the crossfire of. From Temple Run, the demon monkeys do a lap on the stage and deal damage to you, despite your blatant lack of golden idol. From Flappy Bird, pipes appear from the top and bottom of the screen and scroll across for a while, pushing you along if you fail to get through the gaps. From Where's My Water, a pipe bursts in the middle of the stage, pushing players away who get hit into it with great force, and just before it despawns, out pops Swampy for one last big hit. From Fruit Ninja, fruit flies from the side blast zones and occasionally gets cut in half, and all of it can deal damage to you if it lands a hit. From Dragon City, the Flame Dragon flies around and shoots down a few arcs of fire onto your opponents, taking raining hell to a new, very literal high. From Monument Valley, Princess Ida takes center stage and turns that baby around, either 90 or a full 180 degrees, adding even more chaos to this madness. From Airport Mania, a series of planes soar in various directions across the stage, but beware, these are flights you do not want to catch, as they can grab you and take you off stage if you don't attack them fast enough. From Mini Militia, the soldier runs around and lets bullets fly at the closest enemy, and as a homage to its forgotten predecessor, this can also have a chance to appear with the original Doodle Army look. Rest in peace, my sweet prince. And finally, from Cookie Run, Ginger Brave dashes around with his trusty candy cane, smacking you around and sliding into you like the rejected fighter he truly is. And that is quite enough for today, don't you think? I'd say for how long I've had this idea, I'm very proud of how it came together, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Did I miss anyone you expected? Let me know! I'd love to eventually do a follow-up video if there's demand, but either way, thanks for sticking around. Check out that subscribe button, the Discord link, and the join button if you want to see more. Shoutouts to my members, Chloramite and Matt H, and until next time, poo balls.